Today, we're diving into something that, sounds like it's from two totally different worlds. A traditional herb called Danshen and the absolute cutting edge of modern cancer care. Now, let's be clear, we're not talking about miracle cures here. We are talking about massive data sets from tens, even hundreds of thousands of patients. So what does that data actually show? Let's get into it. So right off the bat, this is the big question, isn't it? Can something that's been a staple in traditional medicine for literally centuries make a real, measurable difference in today's cancer treatments? The research we're about to walk through suggests the answer might just be yes. And frankly, the numbers are pretty surprising.
Okay, here's our game plan. First up, we'll get to know exactly what Danshen is. Then we're going to jump straight into the most critical data, patient survival. After that, we'll look at some of the other potential benefits, dig into the science of how it might be working, and finally, and this is the important part, we'll talk about what all of this could mean for you.
All right, let's start with the basics. What exactly is this herb we're even talking about? So, Danshen, which you might also hear called red sage, has been a cornerstone of traditional Chinese medicine for a very long time. So it's definitely not a new kid on the block. What is new is that scientists are now putting it under a modern scientific microscope, really trying to figure out how it works when it's used alongside conventional cancer treatments. And here's why the data is so fascinating. In places like Taiwan, using Danshen is actually pretty common. And what this has done is create a massive, real-world dataset for researchers to pore over. We're not talking about a small clinical trial. We're talking about the health records of tens of thousands of patients over many, many years. Okay, let's get to the numbers. And I just want to be crystal clear here. We're not talking about small, isolated studies. The data we're about to look at comes from these massive observational studies, some involving, you guessed it, tens of thousands of patients. Just look at this number for a second. 74%. In a huge study of over 60,000 lung cancer patients. Those who used Danshen with a specific type of chemo had a 74% lower risk of dying compared to those who only got the chemo. I mean, that is an absolutely huge number. It's the kind of statistic that really makes researchers sit up and pay attention. And you know what? It's not just lung cancer. We see a similar pattern pop up across the board. For advanced breast cancer, the risk of mortality was nearly cut in half. For prostate cancer, a really significant boost in long-term survival. And for bladder cancer, a 40% decrease in deaths from any cause. It's this consistency across different major cancers that really makes this whole thing so compelling. And it gets even more interesting. A meta-analysis, which is basically a study of other studies, pulled together the results from a bunch of different clinical trials. What it found was just wow. Adding Danshen to chemo more than doubled the chances of a positive response from the treatment. And even more incredibly, it boosted the odds of 5-year survival by over 8 times. This chart really paints a clear picture. What's so fascinating here is that the benefit seems to grow over time. So at the 1-year mark, the odds of survival were almost twice as high. By 3 years, it was nearly 3 times higher. And then, by 5 years, you see that enormous jump to over 8 times the odds of survival. It's quite a trend. So, okay, the survival numbers are pretty incredible, but the research suggests that's not even the whole story. A lot of studies are now looking at how Danshen might actually help the body cope with the sheer stress of cancer treatment itself. What's interesting is that one of the traditional uses for Danshen was to help with side effects, and modern science is starting to see why. We're seeing data on potential benefits like protecting the heart, helping to rebalance the immune system, and tamping down inflammation. This could mean it's not just about living longer, but maybe about living better during treatment too. And here's a really concrete example of that. We know that some cancer treatments can be really tough on the heart. Well, in one of these big studies of bladder cancer patients, those who also used Danshen had a 44% lower risk of having a major heart problem. I mean, that's a huge deal when you're talking about supportive care. So this leads to the million-dollar question, right? How? How is this actually happening? What's going on inside the body that could be causing these effects? Well, researchers are digging into a few different possibilities. Okay, one of the leading theories is that compounds in Danshen can actually trigger a self-destruct sequence in cancer cells. It's almost like it flips a switch inside the cell that says, hey, it's time to die. And what's really cool is it seems to be able to do this through a couple of different pathways, which makes it harder for the cancer to resist.
Another really interesting idea is that Danshen might work by, well, cutting off a tumor's supply lines. You see, tumors need to build their own blood vessels to get nutrients and grow, and some research suggests that Danshen can block the signals that allow them to do that. No supply lines, no growth.
So, when you put it all together, it looks like Danshen isn't some one-trick pony. The research suggests it might be launching this multi-pronged attack on cancer. It could be stopping cells from dividing, blocking the key signals they need to grow, and maybe even preventing them from spreading to other parts of the body.
All right, we've gone through a ton of data, but let's pause. What does all of this really mean for you, for patients, for families trying to navigate all this? That's the most important question, so let's get right into it. So after seeing all these numbers and all this science, what's the next step? What should you actually do with this information? This is where we need to be incredibly clear and responsible. Because while the data is promising, this is not a simple go out and buy this kind of situation.
Okay, first and foremost, this is promising research, but it is not a proven cure. And I cannot stress this enough, it is absolutely not a replacement for the treatment your doctor has prescribed. All the data we've looked at is for Danshen used with standard care, not instead of it. Also, things like the right dosage and how long a person takes it seem to be really important factors. And it's not right for everyone. That's why the single most important, most crucial thing you can do is talk to your oncologist about this.
And really, that's the whole point of this explainer. We're not here to give you medical advice. We can't do that. We're here to give you the information you need to have a better, more informed conversation with your doctor. The goal is to help you ask the right questions and be an active, engaged partner in your own care. Thanks so much for watching.